Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Tyler and Shiham. I'm sure a lot of you know who I am. I used to have a day job. I worked at Carnegie Morris Mellon Research Institute. I was the DG there for 18 years, but I decided to leave the government and work for an organization that I helped establish, International Coal Mine Foundation. But now I work as a freelance consultant on various issues of fisheries. And I'm still at international conferences. I'm still the vice chair of the working party on tropical tuna International Commission, which I'll come back. Anyway, so this is a topic: fisheries are a renewable resource. What should we do, and how should we go about doing what is really required? So, what I had planned in mind was first to give an overview of the state of the fisheries of the Maldives and some possible paths or ways of improvement. I'm sure you know Maldives has two fisheries, broadly speaking: the tuna fisheries and the reef-based fisheries. And you always associate Maldives with tuna fisheries because 90 or 80% or 85% of the total national reported catch is tuna, and only 10 to 15% is reef fishing. But I should say reef fishing is quite underreported. I'll come to that point. And a lot of you guys know, Maldives fisheries is very special qualities. We are very popular globally because our harvesting methods are very sustainable. We catch fish one by one, highly selective. We don't harm the dolphins, the whale sharks, the turtles. So a very sustainable method of harvesting. And therefore, our fish and fishery crops are highly sought globally, and in the developed market. And our fishery is certified for Marine Stewardship Council. It's like ISO standard. So independent body comes and assess our fishery, some 21 performance indicators, above 80 from vigorous certificate. So we've been having this MS certificate for skipjack since 2012, and we are about to move certifying our handline yellowfin fishery to certification as well. Anyway, so now I'm slightly shifting. I'm going to talk a little bit about fishery exports and revenue. Before I talk a little bit of science, I'll try to keep it very simple. I don't want to be too technical. So, how do we utilize the catch? So this is some analysis that I've been doing for a project. And you can see, so of the 120 or 130,000 tons of fish that we catch from our seas, we export about 40 to 45%. Sorry, we export 60 to 65% and consume about half. And here is a graph which shows export value of skipjack and yellowfin categorized into four: canned, dried smoke, fresh loins, frozen. And you can see skipjack, mainly the largest chunk is frozen. And it's a problem. I'll come to that point. We export like raw material. We don't value it locally. We export to Thailand. Whereas in yellowfin, we export mainly fresh, but there's also frozen. And there's a whole lot of different products which I can classify depending on how tedious I am to picking up different product categories. And here is a graph that's still in the works, a Sankey diagram, which relates to product flow. And it's just to illustrate that large chunk of red, which is the skipjack red, which is all around, or what we call in the trade name frozen skipjack, goes into Thailand. Sorry, goes into Thailand. You can see there's a little clutter of names here which are still need to work, but it goes to Thailand, and so that's a problem. And there's a whole other variety of products going into, interesting places all around the world. Some, I think, 80 different countries. And from the data, I see the exports are declining. The value is declining. So this is the value of tuna. Remember, tuna is about 95% of our exports. If you download the exports from customs and you filter it, you will see 95% is tuna. So and the value is going down. And I don't know why, and there is a massive decline in yellowfin products, and you know there's a lot of issues. I'm sure you heard a lot of stories in the media and the press about Hangtan yellowfin fishery, Watercanal, and this is going on. This might be the reason. And here's another interesting picture which comes from the export figures or export data. So this is the mean value, mean FOB value from 2006 to 2024. It's 19 years of data. It is plotted from the Maldives going all over the world, some 80. So the point I'm trying to make here is Maldives has access to markets. We have access to markets. We reach all the corners where tuna is consumed. And you can see this huge line going into Bangkok. So the thickness of the line represents the FOB value, and another line, big line going to Europe, especially to UK, which is canned. And my point here is to show that Maldives fishery has high accessibility to developed markets all over the world. And what we need is to prune and strengthen rather than grow the market. So now a little bit of science, and I promise I'll keep it less technical. So tuna is not, they don't stay in the Maldives EEZ. It just roams all around. And the fishery, or the Indian Ocean fishery, is managed by 29 countries. And these two slides show the results of a tagging experiment. We take the fish and we release it, and let it go, and the fishermen catch it. And when you plot this, you can see how dispersed it is. So this is the skipjack on the left, and the right is yellowfin. So it's a highly mobile, highly dispersive species, and we are right in the center and trying to take control, so to speak. And here's the EEZ of all the countries. I just want to show, the areas where the fishing takes place, and the percent is mainly on the Western Indian Ocean, the industrial percent, Europeans, the French, and the Spanish. On the right is the Indonesian, Poland line, Thailand, Gilnet, and long line. And on the North Arabian Sea, we have the strange gilnet fisheries of Pakistan and Iran. And in the middle, we have this tiny, in our EEZ, just a Maldives blue fishery catching 120,000. And guess what? We are taking about 20 to 25% of total Indian Ocean catch. I'll come to that slide in a while. Okay, well, this is just to give you, an idea of how many countries are involved, and the density of the color represents the catch. Obviously, Maldives being very small, they can't show the color, but Maldives also is very bright red. So the Europeans, Indonesians are the largest catch. And I should say, as my colleague Dr. Sinan, Maldives plays a key role in building consensus on the conservation and management issues. And I'm very proud to say one of my colleagues, Adam Ziad, who is a PhD student in Wollongong, is the chairman of this commission. And Dr. Sinan was earlier chair of the SCAF, which is the Standing Committee on Accounts and Finance. So Maldives plays a very solid, very key role there. Okay, now, so this is what scientists do. Every third year, all the countries gather, they bring their data, they do the assessment, and they come up with this strange, this chart, what we call the Kobe phase plot. Basically, what it does is you're trying to point where the stock is in relation to the target. So we have already a planned strategy. There is a strategy which is in place, which is pre-agreed, which is scientifically based, and trying to guide the fishery towards long-term sustainable management by pointing specific measures like total allowable catch, or by capping the fishing effect. So what you see here is you're plotting the ratio of the biomass on the axis relative to the target. Target is the biomass at the maximum sustainable level. So you're putting so the departure from that one on the left means the biomass is lower than the target. On the right, biomass is above the target. And on the y-axis is the fishing mortality. and you want that ratio to be below 1. And this little tracks shows the trajectory of the stock, and this banana shape is the variance or the how the variance of the last resistance. Anyway, this is a technical figure, but this is the kind of crust of the what scientists do. Now, so Moody's, well, in the notion that major stocks had already a port or total allowable pledge in a port, and Moody's obviously has a proportion of that. Here we have Skipjack, Yellowfin, and Big Eye. The Moody's quota is 19% of the total Indian Ocean pledge, which is 630,000 tons. Currently we're getting 125,000 tons. I'm sure the person will say we can manage it. For Yellowfin, the total take of Indian Ocean is 423,000, and we have 11% quota based on that, which is 47,000 tons, and we get roughly 30,000 tons. So we have a lot of headroom to expand. For Big Eye, Lower Canal, we don't have a fishery right now, but I'm sure Ministry is planning to have long lining. But we have a quota of 2%, which is 2,000 tons, and the Indian Ocean take is 95,000 tons. The message from this slide is, Maldives being a tiny country in the central Indian Ocean, we have a big scale. We have a big chunk of the pie. That's the message. Okay, the final set of slides, what can we do? Okay, so a quick recap. Maldives is closely linked to the health of the Indian Ocean. We have a quota, the most important sector of employment, of I guess source of income. The export value is declining, and reef fishery is massively underreported, and of the most of the high value species like the Ramus, eel, honeyhand, was conserved and declined, and there's a lot of people believe that's the case. Unfortunately, we don't have the data to show by evidence. So, what should we do? Value add. We always speak of value add. If we get a mic on the stage, we say we need to value add. That's value add. It's an overstated and highly political word. Now we have restructured the fisheries sector to, I would say, to reorient for a profit-making objective. I think government has to, give way to developing a healthy private sector, which I'm sure that's already in dialogue. And also promote best practices of handling better quality, which I think a lot of buyers are very interested. They want best quality fish. There's a lot of work on ice, putting RSW, referred to seawater on vessels, making sure that they are bringing the fish to the highest quality. Invest in research and development. I would say we have to strengthen the acquisition of fishing information, use of electronic monitoring. Invest in capacity building, and I think we have to engage in the newly formed Fishing and Ocean Sciences and Villa College, which is a premier organization, and also engage stakeholders, tourism and recreational sector, because the recreational sector takes a large chunk of the reef fish. And like I said, we are very popular, we are very good at exporting fish, we export quite a large amount. So, and because of the specific demands of the developed markets, I think we should do these kind of things, improve governance, management, participatory decisions, making compliance, surveillance and enforcement, labor rights issues. This is again quite a big issue now. We have a lot of migrant workers in our fishery, and a lot of people who buy fish from our fishery ask of these things, human rights issues and those sort of things. Be mindful of biodiversity, we are very good at it. Aware of the climate change consequences, maintain target and dependent species in a healthy state, and consider health and safety. I don't want to go too much detail here. Electronic monitoring and AI. So this is, I'm sure a lot of us use ChatGPT, but there's a better way of, certainly a lot of fisheries practitioners are wrecking their head to how they could use AI in fisheries. And I think we could think of towards an AI-assisted analysis, like logbooks, observer, EM, oceanographic drivers of tuna distribution, monitoring and surveillance. VMS is vessel monitoring system, AI is, what is it, AI is? No, it's nothing, but there's a satellite thing that tracks the vessel. Anyway, it's automatic
information system.
Thank you. Yes, for electronic monitoring. Compliance and reporting, tools to support IT submissions and catch documentation scheme. Now remember, any shipment that goes out from the Maldives carries the CDS, catch documentation scheme, which carries information, who caught it, when caught it, where it was caught it, which year it was caught it. This is called traceability. It's very transparent, and thank God Ministry has got infrastructure and software infrastructure to be able to do that. Value chain traceability. But there's a concern. I mean, AI is only as good as the Australian data set. I think in Maldives, we still have very, sparse and irregular data, so we have to be careful. But we need to build robust AI infrastructure. So the main message, exploiting fisheries for economic gains is easy. It's an easy way. As long as there's demand and shows, it will always happen. What is hard is managing the resources sustainably to maintain value and equity. And that requires the full cycle of adaptive management. Research, monitor, put back those information back into management cycle, etc., etc. And if we truly want to unlock the oceans of opportunity, our focus must be on governance and effectively manage the fisheries. Thank you.
So I think we will finish all the presentation and then together we ask questions.
Hi everyone. My talk kind of flows into what Dr. Shiham talked about on fisheries and fisheries governance. So mine is more on beyond fisheries. So looking into aspects that how we could move on fisheries. What lies beyond fisheries and how we could involve youth and innovation in the ocean governance sector. So I recently completed my studies and came back to Maldives. And one of the things really that struck me is how ocean and ocean studies is integrated in the daily life and studies as well. From kindergarten to high school, how ocean and ocean related studies are integrated, whether it's oceanography or fish species or biotechnology even, those elements are well integrated. Mainly because their way of life and the culture is closely associated with the ocean from where I study. But the case should be the same in the Maldives because our life is so much integral as part of the ocean. But yet too often our youth only sees a very narrow or we feed it the system into thinking that ocean is only related to fisheries and tuna. But there are endless, countless possibilities that we can look into, whether it's ocean engineering, whether it's conservation, or whether it's the biotechnology that we really think about. So if we show or if we lead our youth to follow and inspire them to understand that there are more possibilities than we think about fisheries, there are ways that we could think about. So, okay, I forgot about the presentation. So, as Dr. Shah mentioned, I'm not going to repeat some of these statistics, so I'll just kind of follow. So, Shah mentioned about the increase in or the contribution that fisheries make in our economy, and you could really see that during the COVID-19 pandemic. Fisheries was the main economic activity that sustained our entire economy during those periods. But we have to realize, tuna fisheries is not just dependent on the way how we fish. It also depends on what happens on the environment and what other fisheries or what other countries do to the stock as well. because we are working, as Shyam mentioned, on highly migratory fish stocks. So as you could see, the environment or the environment around us is changing, and last year was a significant year. And one of the graphs that Shyam showed was the revenue significantly dropping. Mainly it's because our catch dropped by around 40% last year. So as you could see, the tip over there is mainly because the environment around us was significantly changed, mainly because of Indian Ocean dipole and El Nino effect. And that was not only just us, it affected the entire fisheries in the Indian Ocean. So it was not just a phenomenon only for the Maldives alone. So who among here is doing business studies? So right now, if you think of business-wise, what does it show? We've prepared our fishery just to focus on tuna alone. So that means there's a huge risk in terms of our economic sustainability and viability. So we need to find ways or avenues where we can de-risk our risk portfolio, our entire economy as well. So that's where we need to think beyond fisheries, where we need to think beyond tuna itself. So you could see the impacts on climate change is significantly higher in the Maldives, mainly because we fish only just within our EEZ. So if there's a shift in fisheries pattern, that means that if there's a southward direction of movement, then the entire fisheries will collapse as well. So recent studies by University of British Columbia showed that among the small island developing states, Maldives is one of the most vulnerable in terms of fisheries catch. And in terms of revenue, so this is in terms of catch. So in terms of catch, by the end of this century, 75% of our catch is forecasted to drop. And that would mean around 70% of our entire revenue flow would also reduce as if we go along. But it's not doomsday. There are avenues which we can think about and move, and that's the reason why we need to have this conversation on what needs to be done beyond fisheries. So one of the elements that Dr. Shyam mentioned, I think I'll start from there. It's about harnessing digital ocean data. The Maldives, for example, Shyam forgot to mention, we have data from our fishing fleet from the 1950s, from where it was caught, on which day it was caught, and from which fishing vessel it was caught. So that's plenty of data in terms of harnessing and linking up with climate change and climate impact data. And proudly we could say the entire stock assessment in the Indian Ocean is built upon the data that's provided by the Maldives, a tiny dot in the Indian Ocean. On moving about from that, I think it's important that we broaden our horizon to include those technologies that we can and integrating satellite monitoring, for example, into those information. The second is on aquaculture. So aquaculture is the fastest growing food sector in the world, which is projected to feed around 10 billion people by 2050. So we need to be part of that story. We need to be part of that conversation, and we need to kind of facilitate, or the government need to facilitate an environment where there is diversity on aquaculture. It can also provide food security, and then it also could provide employment opportunities as well. On marine biotechnology, I think this is where I see a lot. So I see a lot of discussion in newspapers. There's among new students coming into education, there's a movement towards business rather than science, and I think that provides a very bad signal to our country. And we need to kind of move that conversation into science, because that's where our economy can broaden scope in terms of where we could lead our industry. If you could just kind of focus that as well. So there's scope on many biotechnology, in medicine, or using some of the diverse ecosystems that the Maldives offers, and also including sustainable materials and nutrition. And if you consider kind of ecoculture as well, biotechnology can scale up some of these products that we can produce. The Maldives also has diverse ecosystems which we can use for energy, whether it's wave or whether it's solar energy that we could use. Some of those are really linked to the ocean. So that is where we could work as well. So I think the key for us is not to replace, so the conversation is not to replace fisheries, but then we need to have a conversation on how we go beyond fisheries and integrate in the ocean nexus into this portfolio. Innovation thrives with sectors connecting. For example, tourism and fisheries can work hand in hand, and I believe some of you might have heard that tourist resorts are looking into coral propagation and also looking into ways of procuring sustainably caught fish. So resorts can, if you look at kind of this model, there is ways to further expand it. Looking into, for example, tourist resorts financing traceability schemes that Dr. Shah mentioned. Our traceability schemes right now is mainly focused on tuna because it's exported. So there is scope for traceability scheme in reef fisheries. Fisheries also can partner with Ministry of Environment, which is which we usually work in silos. Can partner in conservation projects, mainly because we also need to protect spawning fishing grounds. Some of you might have heard on the news as well, for example, there's discussions on reclamation, which I missed the session earlier. Reclamation on biotol, which is quite a prominent economic resource for the entire economy. And research institutions can also scale up some of these information into the global sectors, as Dr. Shyam is proudly leading the working party on tropical tuna, for example, the science body that provides advice to the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission. But I just want to kind of focus back on the youth. I think it's really important that we integrate ocean into our proper education system. I think the current system is, if you want to integrate ocean, it's you do fisheries science. But usually from my days in studies, fisheries science is done by the kind of the poorest academic students would go and take fisheries science. But that has to change. Our entire economy or our entire country is surrounded by oceans, and if you don't know how to gather information and how to use that ocean, we are useless. So I think that message needs to resonate among. And then second part is innovation. There's potential, there's significant amount of job opportunities in innovation in terms of ocean resources, and I think that's where a lot of students get lost. It's not just where we focus on business or businesses. There are significant job opportunities if you look at the food safety, food control, and then even on legal and diplomatic sides, if you consider on fisheries and law. And the third element that I would highlight is on building partnerships. And I think that's where a lot of institutions, whether it's education institutions or whether it's government institutions, everyone works in silos rather than building partnerships and building strategies, working institutional linkages. So if we can work among all of those working on these three elements, I'm sure we can go and we can sail through beyond these horizons and use the vast opportunities that we have in the ocean. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
I will give, Dr. Isna an opportunity. You wanna come this slide?
Yeah, that's right. No, just having that slide, and then Sinan was talking about youth not doing science. I'm from Small Island Geographic Society, 6 year in NGO, and we actually trying to work in those 3 areas. So I wanted to share and say we are open for collaboration. So we do get a lot of students coming to us who have actually studied biotechnology. Our researcher from SIX is one, and she had been on the path to a new career before she started working with us. So we've got a small lab currently, just very recently we started 1/3 of this room probably. It's a very small start. We're trying to do some research in terms of what can be relevant to our marine blue economy, that kind of things. And I think there's a lot of scope for even fisheries ministry and Villa College and Villa High School that we can collaborate on this project.
Just kind of following up on Dr. Misna's point. I just remembered one of my mentors, Dr. Fatin Hamid, late Fatin, used to say, the Maldives is a living laboratory, and if anything that works in the Maldives, it can work anywhere. So if we can scale up a product, then it would work, or it would be able to kind of replicate it elsewhere. So I think it's really important to kind of work through and some of the, even if it's in minor scale, if you can prove some of these products, then it can work anywhere.
Speaking as a youth, hi, I'm Rahim. I am the co-founder of Petala. So we recently just registered. We are an AI research organization. And yeah, that's what and that's our belief as well, right? So the Maldives is like a microcosm of the entire world, where we have every problem right here. We are a little planet unto ourselves. So our research area is that how can we find a framework that works for the AI? How can we build tools of AI that can help the Maldives? And by in turn, we know that can scale to the rest of the world. And yeah, I would love to collaborate with SIX. I would love to collaborate with the ministries as well. And one thing that I realized is because of AI, right? In the previous era of automation, you could either have either economic prosperity or sustainability. So one thing that I wanted to propose, and maybe you already doing this, is how can we add more values? How can we make the value chain better? For example, fisheries, instead of, let's say, catching more fish, let's market them as a high value product. And then let's explore the AI ways of how to make that better. Are there any initiatives like that right now?
Because of the way how we fish, for example, as Dr. Challenge, our cost of production is very high. So the only way that we can meet with the cost of production is to export to the fish market. So what I think Dr. Cham's presentation highlighted is the government's main aim through whether it's certifications is to reach to those niche markets. And I think whether it's US or the European Union, those are the two kind of main, or Australia or South Africa, those are the main kind of niche markets that we export right now. There is discussion on whether we can export to, for example, the Middle East, where the products are not that niche at this point. But there's an area we can kind of facilitate on how we can further kind of cement the work that's being done in, for example, the US or through in the Europe.
No, I think it's a great question. I'm sure there are some, I'm not sure AI, but definitely applications, traceability. Imagine, for instance, these guests coming into guest houses,
Yeah,
resorts, and things like that. And imagine that each fish is tagged,
That's what
and
we
which
were
can be linked to the person in code. And imagine the person who consumes the fish scan the QR code, takes that into a website which talks about how the fish is caught, who it was caught, telling a story. Right? So we already have something in mind. I can happy to talk that.
Yeah.
It's quite popular in South Africa.
Oh.
But also look, imagine, in the Maldives, a lot of people no longer go to the fish market and buy fish and let the guy cut it and bring it in the Singapore bottle. But they would rather have it buy from NCS or from other places where it's nicely packed, labeled with the produce getting best before that. I think there's a lot that we can do to commodify, to productivize, if I can use that word, so that everybody can go and have the best product that adds the value to the chain. So certainly AI and electronics and software engineering would help that.
One thing I think how AI could help is AI allows us in our research, what we are building right now is something we call Murak AI, which is something Murak AI.
Okay.
It is an AI model that can analyze coral reef imagery and such for health analysis. And so I think there's also a UNDP project, and that sort of aligns with what we want to do is you've also discussed this before, it's we have all these natural resources, right? We have all these natural assets, but because we aren't aware of the numerical value we can assign to those, because let's be fair, there's a numerical value that we can give to each fish, each coral, and each atoll. There's a numerical dollar value to that. So if we can build a system that can understand that could lead to more economic diversification, right?
Yeah. But imagine in a world where the fish distribution and abundance is highly unpredictable, and AI is able to predict where the potential fishery zone. If we're able to integrate ocean information, thermocline depth, habitat or whatever, thermal stratification, whatever, and the catch into an algorithm where you can predict the catch, really fantastic piece of software, fantastic piece of application. I know this has been done elsewhere in commercially, but Maldives hasn't had success in doing that.
Yeah.
Well, try.
Okay.
Yeah, we are working on it. So one of our software developers are working on a model which can integrate climate, as what Dr. Shah mentioned, on integrating climate information into what we have, so that the software can, based on prediction, based on past trends, because we have this enormous amount of data from 1950. So integrating those into climate models to better predict some of those. But your point on financial valuation, and I think it's really an important conversation, because politicians, since I'm a fisheries manager and we often get to work with different politicians, and politicians often measure their measurements or judgments based on financial value, right? So that's the reason why we've been pushing with UNDP and working with Ministry of Environment as well to understand the dollar value in terms of the ocean resources that we hold. So that, for example, if there's a reclamation, how much impact would that have on the dollar value? That would be a bigger discussion to have with a politician, rather than just saying, okay, on environment there is a significant loss. But in terms of how much loss we are going to suffer, that's where I think a debate can have with politicians.
Can we, just thinking about the time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Sinan. It's always a pleasure listening to you. I wasn't here when Dr. Siam presented, but I think I've caught a glimpse of what he must have said from references made to you by Dr. Sinan. My question actually is about one very important point which you raised, and that is collaboration. I would like to know what strategies do you think we need to put in place to strengthen collaboration between government and educational institution in ocean governance in the Maldives. And I want to highlight particularly collaboration with private institutions. This is because I've attended quite a number of fora here in the Maldives. I see a lot of focus on government institutions, and I know that one of the objectives of ocean governance in the Maldives is inclusivity, and everybody has to be carried along. For instance, I attended one program recently, by MNU, and I saw them doing some kind of stakeholder mapping, and they didn't include Gila College, where we have done a lot of research in ocean governance generally. So I raised that there, that we are not on the list, and they also identified the fact that private institutions have been sidelined as well. So I would really like to know, what do you think we need to do to improve collaboration with educational institutions generally in ocean governance, but particularly with reference to private institutions? So that is the first thing. Then the second one, you also mentioned something very impressive, research as an opportunity. Because you see, when people talk about opportunities, they will focus only on fisheries, they will focus only on, but I was so impressed that you actually highlighted research, but I think time did not allow you to expatiate on that. How is research an opportunity in the ocean governance? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll start with the letter. You wouldn't believe the Maldives has expanded our fisheries from catching roughly around 20,000 to now 160, 170,000 tons. But we spend less than 0.1%, our companies itself, on research into new products. And that has been our trend for the entire duration. So we kind of follow up on what other people do and then focus only on the 4 products that Dr. Shah mentioned in his presentation. It's canned, it's frozen, it's smoked, that's it. But the world has evolved into production of so many different products. If you consider, for example, in tuna as well, you can produce from fish waste, the fish waste that we throw into the ocean every day after the fish market, that can be utilized to produce omega-3 grades. And that's one of the most expensive thing that's been exported into the US. We throw it to the ocean to be fed by other products, other resources. So I think investing, and that's where the government is now changing our kind of priorities into research and development. And we are going to spend, we earmarked under World Bank project to spend roughly around $9 million into research and development of new products in coming formats. And especially using waste as a product, and this is just kind of one part of the puzzle. And there are so many other areas where we could use research in ocean governance, whether it's the work that you've been leading on fish on ocean law as well. There are areas where we can, as a country, can lead some of the upcoming negotiations or discussions. For example, whether it's biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction discussion that's happening at the UN and so. And as Maldives earmarks for goes into areas where we are fighting against illegal, unregulated, and unreported fisheries, there are avenues where those aspects can research into on how we can mitigate some of those aspects and also needs. On answering your first question, I think the Maldives institutions where our culture has been, we always work very much in silos. Whether it's as part of my institution or the Ministry of Fisheries, we also work very much in silos. We do what we are known for, and we forget about the rest. But we management plans and fisheries guidance, and that has to be a must if you go into, for example, new fisheries. The president, for example, has announced a new Gulf shark fishery, which is set to be open on November 1st. But before we do that, we would need to have wider range of stakeholder discussions under the Fisheries Act, which we cannot bypass. So that is a must right now that we would need to involve. But as a government institution, you're very right that we forget about other public institutions and even on educational institutions. The MNU College of Fisheries and Ocean and Marine Resources, I think it's a long name. It came into existence while Villa College was already working on fisheries and ocean resources. And I think there's avenues that both institutions can work collaboratively. And that's an area where we would like to understand more on, for example, what's Villa College wants to be known for, right? So ocean and ocean and marine resources is a very diverse pool. And it's really important to, for an institution to be known on where you want to be, your research is going to be focused on. If you kind of start to go into every area that the ocean offers, then you don't really specialize your research and research focus. And that is something that we would really like to understand. And that's where I think a dialogue can help going into.
Yeah, I have two questions. I was out for a while, but my first question is, the mindset of our people towards fisheries and the oceans. We tend to look for tourism jobs, tourism development, tourism sector enhancement. But fisheries is only, I think Dr. Shiham mentioned also, I think fisheries is only about pole and line. Yeah, harvesting, pole and line fishing. How do we go about educating? I mean, there was on the slide, as you said, as mentioned, more than educating, how do we go about changing mindsets of the nation, the mindset of the nation on fisheries, that it is a valuable resource that we can make a lot of money out of it, and we can build the nation on. The second question is this pole and line fishing thing. The West is very good at giving us these rights, human rights, climate change, climate rights, all of these things. We are busy protecting our reefs. The West, while the West is reaping the benefits, they don't care about the climate, they don't care about nature, they don't care about reefs. They busy us with protecting reefs and these kind of nuances, and they make trillions out of us. So that's my second question. And also, how can we get rid of this mindset of protecting, and get into making a living, building a nation? Thank you.
I'm just kind of trying to get out my thoughts. So my PhD research is focused on creating equitable futures for ocean governance in terms of and one of the underlying research outcome from the 4 papers that I worked on was ocean governance is part of a colonial project. And colonialism has been deep-rooted in parts of ocean governance mechanism. And I would really like you guys to have if you can search on Google my name and research, some of these findings would be out there. But colonialism is never thought of, right? And the Western project on colonialism has deeply been rooted into part of the conversation on not on ocean governance but on other diplomatic areas we get rid of the kind of the EZ or the sovereignty disputes. But it is more than the sovereignty disputes. It goes into other parts of diplomatic norms such as ocean governance as well. So I don't think we have the time to have that kind of discussion, but that is the underlying norm. And we need to kind of put forward that thinking that we need to survive. Right? We as human beings need to survive, but we need to be acting as a responsible person. One of the things that while in early days of my career, one of the things that came into discussion was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a resource, right? The resources, whether it's sharks, turtles. But we have to act responsibly if you want to harvest, whether it's skipjack or yellowfin or any resource that we have. We need to be responsible for our actions. So our actions are not only judged today, but later on as well. So our actions are there, the resources are there for us to use, but we have to be responsible in the way we harvest and the amount that we harvest. And I think I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you for reminding us about the time. Yes, we are gone a bit over. I think we'll finish it here. Yes. Very good.
No, I was thinking, how long can we go with pole and line fishing? That's one. Two, now are we doing anything? Because from Dr. Shyam's presentation, I could see we have a unique opportunity to harvest right, and exploit reef fishing. That's one area. We don't seem to export it so much as a product.
Yeah. No, I mean, reef fishing is very different from tuna fishing because tunas roam around the ocean, so their numbers and abundance are massive. Whereas in reefs we have very high diversity, but their biomass is quite low. And also the longevity or the generation time of reef fish is quite long. Like for grouper, 24 years. Snapper lives about 30 years. So the minute you start exploiting them, their demographics, as we were talking about, in the previous session, it just breaks up and all the spawning biomass gets, it's changed in here. So that's what has happened to reef fish. And sadly, there is no information to look at whether the catch rate has gone down or the size has gone up. And we have a lot of anecdotal information so that we don't catch, high value species like ruby snapper, which is a very sought after, or jumbo gill, for instance. I think what we need, as I said, is manage to conserve. We need information. We need AI. We need electronic stuff, tools to be able to, get that information. Who is catching where, what size? Where's the citizen science reporting, right? So that's one thing we need to do. Coming to your point of the polar line, well, that's a national conversion that we have to have. Do we want to continue this one-by-one fishing with a lot of migrant laborers? Or should we move something else? I don't know, it's a very touchy issue because, there's something called soft power. Bollywood is for India, Hollywood is for US, Monarchy is for UK, and we are tuna. That's a soft power. We don't want to let it go, I think. So it's a very touchy issue. I think we will have to continue one-by-one fishing for a while.
All right. Thank you very much. We will finish it for today. And once again, thank you for taking time to come and share your thoughts on ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shyam, Dr. Sehal. That's really fascinating. We need to talk more about it, I think.
Can I invite Rector? Dr. Shihab. Thank Thank you. It was great. I think the time is not enough. Right?
No.
So it was kind of. Thank you guys.